everybody. It's been a hot second since I made the post on Reddit, but today we're going to be exploring how you can print your own Four Souls cards at home. I will be providing two different sets of templates linked in the Reddit post. I have them here. However, the general idea behind this is that the cards are on the same side of the page. That way, the page can be folded and glued and cut properly. And right now I'm going to show you the couple different sets of programs that you are going to need. Now you don't need these exact programs, but these are the ones that I use to get my results, and my results are almost 100% spot on. When printed and cut, I think my cards come out to about 62.7 millimeters by 87.7 millimeters, and this could be a little bit of error on my part in the cutting process, but they fit in the sleeves fine and everything else. Those programs that I'm talking about are going to be GIMP. This is essentially a free Photoshop. Been around since the 90s. If you have Photoshop, you're more than welcome to use that. The template files I'll be providing are PNGs, which means they should work in just about any image photo manipulator that you have. I'm just showing you how I do it. The one I have the most success with in printing these out one-to-one best I can has been view in the form of like a photo viewer and printer, because there's a lot of options when it comes to the printing side, which is the reason why I use this. And then later on, we are going to talk about potential upscaling of the foursouls.com repository images. And the reason why you would want to do this is because of the cards being a little fuzzy when used at the standard definition that you get off the repository. Upscaling these cards will make them a lot heftier when it comes to actual size on your drives, but they will not be as fuzzy when printed out. Not that the foursouls.com repository cards are super fuzzy. They're actually fine for most people. However, I found that using cup scale to upscale the images a little bit works wonders on the text. And for anybody who's not super familiar with GitHub, it's a free open source site. I actually believe all of this is free, and I think this is open source as well. I know GIMP is open source and Cupscale is open source, but in the GitHub, you would just Google Cupscale, click on the GitHub by this user, come over here to this release, and you just simply download this zip file right here. That's all you need. This is, I believe, only for Windows. If you're on Mac or Linux, you may not be able to do this, or if you know how to upscale images on your respective operating system, by all means. This is just what I use, because I am in fact on Windows. Now, continuing a little bit further, so I will be providing these templates, but what you'll do is this is the standard unupscaled template I'm going to be using for right now. I just right click and I hit open with, and I select GIMP. And now I do not have this as a white background. I just have it as transparent, but it is a PNG. And then what I do is I go find the card that I want to upscale. In this case, I was using Brimstone. These are currently 2 upscaled versions. But for right now, we'll just do this Lost Soul PNG because I have it right here. I would go to open with GIMP. You do not want to drag it necessarily onto the page here, because this is what would happen if you do that. It will open it as in this image on a layer, a different layer, and we want that, but we don't want that right now. So we're going to delete that. So we're going to come over here. We're going to Control A, and this selects all, right? And then Control C for copy. And then we can come over here. We can go to our fuzzy tool right here. She looks like a little star with a wand. We're going to select, as you can see, I have these gray borders. So this will only select everything similar to what I've clicked, which the center would be transparent, similar to what I clicked, and then I'd be able to paste it in here. It would have seen that I had the wrong one, so what we're going to do is we're going to delete that, and we're just going to go through this again. I have already downloaded the proper one, so let's grab this guy. Do the same thing again, open it in GIMP. Control A for select all. I mean, you could always do this up here as well. Select all. And then I believe, is there a copy up here? I don't use it. Yeah, right here. Control C for copy. I just know the keyboard shortcuts. I've been using GIMP for well over a decade now. Probably getting close to 15 years. And as you can see, it fits that perfectly. But it's not an actual layer, it's a pasted layer. So we're going to come over here to the side. We're going to hit to new layer right here. And what this does is this will be on its own thing. So like I can do this to make it hidden and invisible, but what we want to do, right, is to take this layer and pull it underneath the template. And the reason why we do that is it's kind of like a sandwich, okay? Whatever's on top will be able to be seen first. So we want these guidelines to be seen over everything else, because we'll be using these later to cut the images. And that's actually why I can only do 3 cards per page. Most other print and play stuff I've done using this a similar method of a template has been able to do 4. But the 4 Souls repository card images are not actually at that 88 millimeters when printed out. They actually have extra stuff on the top and sides and bottom, so that there is no issue in the card being cut too short or anything along that. They're actually 2.75 around that inches, which is a little bit longer than normal. Most cards are about 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and these repository cards are 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, meaning we need to trim part of that off. Thus, these guidelines. And also why I can't put 4 cards on here, because that would take it directly to the edge of the paper, and we don't want that. We do not want it on the edge of the paper. Otherwise, could be an issue of printing out later. Now for the back portion. I have the monster card back right here. We'll do the same sort of thing. We'll open up in GIMP. Now this is one extra step. For print and play, if you're going to be sleeving these, you technically don't need to even put the back on if you don't want to. Because you're probably going to be sleeving them in a colored back sleeve. If they're clear, then sure. However, home printers aren't necessarily the best thing when it comes to color accuracy. So I recommend some sort of solid back card. I use Ultra Pro Eclipse. It's what I've used since I played Magic and Digimon and everything along those lines. I've been using them for years now. Dragon Shields are great. KMCs were good at the time. I haven't really kept up with them. Anyway, I personally use colored back sleeves. So would I need to put a back on this for myself? Not necessarily. I do, but you don't have to. But if you are putting a back, which you do need to do, is because this half will be folded on top of this. You do not want it to be just pasted onto the other side. You don't want this. And the reason why we don't want that is because this will be folded around back onto this and it would be upside down, right? And it would also be facing the wrong direction. So what we want to do is we want to come over here to Images, Transform. You want to flip it upside down. Flip it horizontally. You need that as well. And then you also need to flip it vertically. This way, when the card is folded, it will be the correct way around. Now, like I said, it needs to be flipped both over here in Image, down to Transform, horizontally and vertically in order for this to work properly. You come over here, you click that, you hit Paste. Come over here, you hit to New Layer, and we'll have that same issue where it's on top of the thing. It doesn't need to be at the bottom, it just needs to be underneath the template. These cards are not in any way, shape, or form going to be connected to each other on the template, so which is on top of the other really doesn't matter, as long as they are below the template. And now what you would do is after that, these buttons, Save and Save As, those are for GIMP formatted files. We're not really interested in that, and you do not want to overwrite the template. So we are going to export as, and then I'm just going to call this one video test. And then I have the 350 ppi, that is pixels per inch. That is what I found to be the best ppi when it came to these specific cards, making them about 2 3/4 and 3 3/4. It's not the best, but I did get it to work. And we have this right here. And this will open for me in Image Glass. That's what I use for my normal everyday run, but here it is. But we need to open in Irfan view. Alright, so to do that, right click, open with, and then Irfan view right here. Now, this is something that I ran into. So, in my experience, installing this directly after, my background was black. And yes, it will print out black. We don't want that. So, what you need to do to change this is on your keyboard, you press the P button, you'll have this properties to come up. You'll want to go to this section right here, viewing, in this main window color. Choose, and then drag this all the way up to white. If it will actually let me. There we go. You hit OK. You hit OK. And now it won't change immediately. You'll have to close down the image and reopen it in the program, and then voila, we have it here. Now from here, this is looking fantastic, just how we had it in GIMP. We're going to come over here, we're going to go to Print or Control P. And this is the reason why I use this piece of software. I have this set up what works for me, and I would generally say this is a great starting point for most people. It should detect that your image is in landscape. You want the original size, so whatever the DPI or PPI when it comes to pixels, but for printing it's DPI because it's dots, and they should be very close to 1 to 1. I have borderless printing here. I have it set to inches, and I actually have a custom width right here, but I usually stay on original size. This could be something if your printer isn't doing it just right. Maybe you want to come over to custom and set this accordingly. Now, printer setup, and then it'll tell you what the name of your printer is and then the properties. And then if you've ever messed around with your printing properties, this should look familiar. This is mine, HP Envy Photo. I've played with this right here, borderless off and on. When I turn it on in here, sometimes when I turn it on in here, for me, the cards print out too big. So I leave the borderless off in here, but on in the earfin view. And then to get the best looking, I go to best here. This will add a little bit more ink to the page. It does take a little bit longer to print and does eat up a little bit more ink. This is personal preference. If you just want the cards printed out, and it doesn't really matter too much how saturated the colors are or how it looks, maybe a little bit of print lines, maybe just, you know, draft or normal would be best for you. For me, I liked the best quality. And then we hit OK here, and then we hit OK here, and then you would hit the print button, and it would print your image through your printer. I don't need to do that. I've already done this at least a dozen times at this point. So let's move on. Alright, before we move to what you would be doing in like a craft sort of situation, I will explain a little bit about cup scale. Now I already have it here. I'm going to delete this folder so I can have the zip file, and I'm just going to extract it brand new. Alright. In here, inside the extracted folder, you will have an executable file. We'll just run that, right? And this is really, really easy to use. So I'm going to come back here. I got this lost soul, right? I'm going to drag it in here. It loads it up. Now, if you're using NVIDIA, PyTorch is probably what you want. However, for me, I'm using an AMD card. So I use this NCNN. You come over here to pick your model. It comes preloaded with 3 different models. You're able to find more. However, this first one seems to work well enough for me. I'm going to select the model. You can come over here. You can add suffix. You can make the output PNG. I usually leave all of this exactly how it is. Now for me, because I'm using an AMD card, it has to convert the model into something AMD can use. So for me, this takes a hot second, but if you were using a NVIDIA card, it would probably just work right away. I don't have too much experience with that. However, after that first model conversion, it no longer needs to convert the model, and therefore every upscale after that, using the model you used the first time, it won't have to take that time to convert that model. So I'm going to hit upscale and save, and we'll come back when it's done. Alright, it's done with the conversion, and right now it's loading into post-processing. We got this little indicator down here at the bottom stating that it's done, and it took just over a minute. And it will, as you can see over here, create a new file. It will not overwrite the old file with the exact same name as the old file plus whatever model you decided to use. So we use 4X BS right here, and as you can see, that's what it's called. Boom. And this is upscaled. You can, if you zoom in, you can see right here. This is much larger. It's at 3,848 pixels by 5248 versus the original being 962 by 1312. Alright, we can close out of here. And I'm not going to go super in depth because it's the exact same process as doing before. I will be providing this template. But I have this finished upscale template here. You should just be able to edit, open with GIMP. It might take a second for it to load. It's a little bit of a larger file, not like in size on disk, but as you can see down here, it doesn't have it there right now. Yeah, it takes a little bit of memory to be able to use this. I would not recommend this for a bare bones PC. Mine seems to be able, if you wish to try it out for yourself, by all means. But yeah, you would just do the exact same thing. Come over here. And voila. Fits right in. And now all this would really do is when this card gets printed, it will be less fuzzy around the words. Now, the other words on the normal ones are completely legible. There's absolutely no problem with them. It's just I wanted to go a little bit further and have it be a little bit more crisp. And I have already been well acquainted with cup scale for different tabletop mods that I've done in the past, being able to take low resolution cards and not necessarily reproduce them, but make them better for a platform like Tabletop Simulator. So that's how you would do that. You would do it to both the front and the back. For the sakes of this video, I just showed you one half, but it works for both. Now, I really do not have a good way of taking a video off of the computer, so I have, with my personal phone, been able to take a lot of pictures on the process of how this works. So, you will need some tools. This is what I use. I have a rotary cutter, a caliper. Mine's digital. It was just a cheap one I got at Walmart. A cork back ruler. This is important. A normal ruler would potentially move and not make your cuts as good. You need a cork back ruler. Highly recommended. Some sort of spray adhesive. This is what I used when I was doing print and plays for different tabletop games. This is not 100% necessary, but an X-Acto knife of some sort. And then this guy down here, this is a corner cutter. This is what I got. It's super cheap feeling. It's not the best thing. It does the job and has cut many cards at this point. It's got 3 different selections. What I would recommend for most people, like this guy right here, but I wouldn't recommend getting it here because that is some high delivery. However, what you are looking for is a 3mm. This 4mm would probably get the job done, but you're looking for a 3mm. So let's see if we can find that just by a simple Google search. And right here we have a 3mm, but this is also $20. I mean, these cards are going to be sleeved more than likely. You don't even need to necessarily round the corners yourselves if you don't want to. But here's the same one again. This is what I use because it's what I have on hand. I honestly want like this guy right here because these will last so much longer than what I have here. But this is what I have, so this is what I use. And this is just a bit closer up of how this works. So you just pull this down, it turns the guard off. This is just a simple digital caliper. It cost me about 10, 11 bucks at my local Walmart. There's that right here. I use the small. This is approximately like a 2 or 3 millimeter. There's that cork back ruler I was talking about. That is necessary. An X-Acto knife. If all else, I just happen to have this, so I use it just in case. I also tend to use the X-Acto knife to crease the folded over image when everything is finished. Like, this is what I use. I really enjoy the Super 77. This is about $10 and it's lasted me a long time. And the final thing I did not mention before is a self-healing cutting mat. This is so necessary. It will stop you from marring countertops or running through a bunch of cardboard. It also helps with that cork back ruler and keeping it steady. Adds a little bit extra friction. So here we are. A printed out brimstone. This is what I usually did my stuff with. This is, I do believe, a upscaled version. As you can see from about where that thing is, that little cross right here, to the other one up top, I got it set almost perfectly on the page at 63 millimeters. And as you can see, this runs all the way to the edge of this side, but not to the top. This is what I was talking about when playing around with the different Irfan View settings as well as your printer settings. What I have set is what works for me, but it may vary printer to printer. But if you're off just a little bit, you're fine. Like I said, I would rather my cards be a little bit less, like say 62 point whatever, or even 62 on the dot, than be bigger, because the bigger they are, there's a likelihood it will not fit in your sleeve. And I actually did run across that in one of my testings. And then right here, from about dot to dot, now mind you, this is a little bit crooked, got about 88. So what you would do is that line that's right here that runs through the center of the thing, you use that as a guide to crease. You crease along that black line. And the reason why you do this is because the front and the back of the card are equidistant from that center line. And printers, especially home printers, have a habit of not lining up the image to the paper perfectly. And then I took the X-Acto knife and creased that center line, allowing the two sides of the paper to fit flush. Now I show this a little bit later, but this is what I'm talking about. You see how these two pages are not overlapped perfectly. That is fine. That is 100% fine, because we know that our front and back are equidistant from that center fold line, and this is probably caused by our printer not printing out this page straight. I show it here, it's a little bit blurry, but this is what we want. Now this is a little hard to see, but on this side we see like a little indent. It's not actually an indent. That is the ink from the other side of the page, as well as this is the ink from this side of the page, and we can see that they are lined up. Now depending on if your print makes it to the edge of the page or not, you may not see this, but on most of mine this happens, and when this happens, you know you are in good standing. Your front and your back image should be perfectly aligned. And this is why we do not use duplex printing, which is the printing on the front of the page and on the back of the page, because duplex printing has a wildly inaccurate lineup. So what we do is we set our ruler here. I have it set aside just a little bit, but you want to line that ruler up to these guys, and then use your rotary cutter, press it up against the side of that ruler, and then make plenty of passes. You only go forward. Do not go forward and go back. If you go back, you could potentially cut your hand. You could potentially ruin another card. If you come back and then it decides to go off this way, we don't want that. We want to only push forward, pick up, and then recycle. You want to keep going. And then you would have something similar to this. You can still see a little bit of the things here. That's fine. For me, I have the corner rounder, so these will get taken off easy. We do it again on top and bottom. And then we have this guy right here. This is not a perfect square, but it works. And then I just simply snip off the corners, and we have a reprinted reproduction Home 4 Souls card. As you can see, this is 62 by 7 millimeters by 87.7 millimeters. So this is probably due to my inaccuracy of cutting. I did have a little bit of a mishap when it came to cutting this specific card, but as you can see, this is just a dummy sleeve I have. It's kind of ripped here at the bottom, but card fits in it just the same. Now, when it comes to cardstock, I have not found the best cardstock there is. For most cards, I don't know exactly for Souls, but in my time in like the print and play community, most people would agree that 300-pound card, like the actual thickness of the cardstock, is about what you want for a premium card. Now, as you can clearly see here, this says 110 pound. Why am I talking about 300 pound? Well, because the front of the card and the back of the card are both going to be 110 pounds, so my finished cards are in fact 220. And I'm putting them in sleeves, so they're fine for me. However, this is not linen cardstock. Also fine because I'm sleeving mine. I would really love to find a high pound linen cardstock that doesn't cost an arm and a leg for 150 sheets at my local Walmart for like less than $9. This suits my needs perfectly. I'm able to make reprints of any expensive cards I necessarily don't want to sleeve or get ruined, or any of the reworked promo cards that I have not seen reprints and possibly won't. If anybody's able to send me a link through the Reddit post saying, hey, I found this for a reasonable price of linen cardstock that when folded onto itself gets right around 300, a little bit over, a little bit less, would be fine. That'd be great. I would immediately start using this. But for my cost effectiveness of this project, this works great for me. Anyway, that is how you were able to, at home, make printed 4 Souls cards to a high degree of accuracy. Like I said, everybody's printers are going to be a little bit different. It's just the nature of the beast. I'm not able to tell you the best way to print out on your printer. However, what I would suggest is potentially just taking the template you want to use. These should be exactly the same. This is literally just an upscaled version of this. But just taking this, opening it with EarthInView, and without any images, print this out. Take your digital caliper or your ruler or however you're trying to measure this. You don't necessarily need the digital caliper if you're able to use just a standardized millimeter ruler and figure out how long it is here. I just use a digital caliper because it's what I had. print this out. Don't have any extra ink on it. Print it out and do some measurements. Print it out 2-3 times until you get something you are happy with that you can sleeve. Now the color accuracy, like I said, is going to differ printer to printer. For me, mine's are a little bit darker, and I've been playing around with trying to correct that a little bit, but honestly, it's not a huge deal to me. Like I said, my cards are sleeved, and they're colored back sleeves, so like in the stack of cards, I can't tell the difference. For some people who are using clear Dragon Shields, matte Dragon Shield sleeves, this might make or break some people. Play around with the hue, play around with saturation, contrast. See if you can get something close to. It doesn't make or break this whole method, but for some people that may be a deal breaker. But that is how you can do this. So yeah, I'll have links on the Reddit post for the different programs that I used, as well as uploads probably to a Google Drive of the templates that I've created. Thank you, everybody.